KPCA, LP, Petaluma, California. Good afternoon, everybody.
It is afternoon. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
How's everybody?
Well, this half is fine. How's everybody over there?
Well, the other half's okay, too, it looks like. In case you're wondering, folks, this is two Mooks and a mic.
It is two Mooks
in our inimitable style.
Yeah, we kind of stumble into the beginning here.
Really?
That's Matt McGuire over there, everybody.
And that's Jim Thomas over there.
Hey, Matt, I don't know about you, but I'm hearing things out of only my left earphone.
Oh.
Are you hearing out of both?
I am.
Oh, well,
yeah.
let me try. No, it was still. Oh well, I can. I'm left-handed, left-footed, left-eyed, so maybe left-eared.
Behind.
Oh, man.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Are you talking about the rapture again? Will you please stop proselytizing on this show,
hey, listen,
Matt?
They'll all float up to heaven, and the rest of us are going to party.
You know, what happens with people who believe in that? What happens to their artificial knees or their fillings in their teeth or even their contact lenses? There's just a pile of stuff left.
There is, yeah.
Wow.
Along with their britches and everything else.
Hey, man, don't even go there. We're not, this is a family-rated show, more or less.
More or less.
So,
well,
it's Friday.
It's
12
Friday.
noon. Woo.
Thanks for joining us,
yes,
folks.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
You know, as you know, if you're a listener, this is our left-wing political rant. We review the craziness of the week before and prognosticate on what might come to pass.
Prognosticate. I don't know about a rant. If Matt rants, I weep. So if you hear sobbing on this, and it's me just like, oh, here we go.
That's right.
How many more years do we have?
Well, you know, we figure forewarned is forearmed. Where do we start today, Jim?
Where should we start? Let's start at the beginning, Matt.
Well, okay.
So why don't we talk about the so-called occupant of the White House being out of the country?
Yeah.
And we're hoping he can't come in because maybe his visa's no good, but I think he will be able to come in.
Don't let him back in.
No.
Yeah, he's over in Britain and Europe with the so-called, with the D-Day celebration, 75th anniversary.
75 years.
He goes around and spreads his filth and his nastiness, his bile. That's right. Insults the mayor of London.
Ridiculous. He insulted the mayor of London even before he landed.
That's right.
And Meghan Markle, the princess, the new princess,
called her nasty. She dared to criticize him,
and he denied it. And but he was on tape.
Yeah.
So gee whiz,
and then it's like
an idiot.
And he's meddling in their business. Oh yeah, you should do Brexit. We'll have we'll partner up with you. It'll be such a great deal. We'll privatize your health care.
Yeah,
even the Tories are going, oh, get him out of here.
Yeah, he wants to have American insurance companies come in there. He suggests that Brian, I can't think of his name, the guy with the wild hair, kind of looks like Trump. His version should be the prime minister, Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson,
yes.
yeah. And he's giving jobs to Nigel Farage. These are Brexit Nazi types. You know?
And then he goes up to Ireland, to where his golf course is, and he insists on meeting with the president of Ireland. And the president says, "No, I'm not going to meet at your golf course. You can meet at this place." And Trump says, "No." So they finally end up meeting in a conference room at the airport. And Trump's telling him he should build a wall.
God.
It's just, it's embarrassing.
Well, and
the
guy is just as usual, out of control, a train wreck everywhere he goes. It'd be great if we could leave him out of the country. His family freeloaded, went on the excursion on the taxpayer's dime.
Puts my knickers in a twist.
He claims he's the richest guy around. We all know he's truly $1 billion loser in more ways.
Well, anyway, he's a loser. Put your
exactly.
L in your finger.
And he's he's still pushing the. We mentioned this last week where he was going to impose 5% tariff on Mexico if Mexico did not stop all illegal immigration.
That'll work. Who's that going to hurt?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, so there's like $350 billion a year of business with Mexico.
Right.
They're our single largest trading partner. And experts say, whether they're politicians, diplomats, immigration experts, lawyers, they're all saying that's impossible. There's no way that Mexico can stop that. And now they're still in discussions. They're still trying to avoid the deadline, which is the 10th.
Whoa,
Monday.
It is? That's only 4 days away. 3 days away.
Yeah, and
wow.
And so they're talking about what's called a third a third safe country treaty with Mexico, which would say that any immigrant that leaves his country, his or her country, the first country they come to, they have to apply for asylum. And Mexico has been fighting that proposal for years.
Well, of course.
Because they don't have the resources.
No.
And that's not going to happen, I don't think. But in the meantime, Trump's going, well, too bad, I found it interesting that the state that's going to have the single biggest hit economically, though,
is Texas.
Is Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Well, Matt, I do admire the Mexicans for what they're doing. They're not bending over for Trump, but they're trying to appease him in some way. So
they are.
The officials have proposed a deal to increase immigration enforcement and give the U.S. more leeway to deport asylum seekers. Here's what they're doing. They promised to send up to 6,000 National Guard troops to their border with Guatemala as a show of force meant to deter migrants from heading north. Whether that works or not, who knows? Oh, hold on a second.
And people are saying, that might help, but it's not going to stop.
And I bet that's not going to be like the U.S. National Guard that are going to shoot tear gas at the people trying to cross the border. Another thing they're doing, they're negotiating a plan with the U.S. to require Central American migrants, this is what you're talking about, to try to seek refuge in the first foreign country they set foot into, leaving them. Right, but they're negotiating with a plan. So they're trying to do it in a humane way instead of just being a bully, ordering them around.
And President Obrador has said that he is not going to do America's quote-unquote dirty work on immigration.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So the once again, it's the Canadians and the Mexicans who are showing that they are more mature and more humane than Trump's America.
And more realistic. Because this is just completely,
not shooting from
crazy.
The hips. Right. It's having a little bit of foresight. It's like polish your dang glasses. And look before you step.
And, once again, there's even the Republicans in the Senate are upset over this whole thing. That? And they met with a White House attorney who gave them a rundown, and they said, look, we actually have enough Republicans who oppose this so we could come out with overcome a veto if we pass a law saying, no, you can't do this.
The operative word is could. They could.
Right.
Will they? Now, who knows?
Well, look at the history of the Republicans in the Senate. They have been, servile lapdogs to Trump from day one.
That's right.
And
it's a cult, Matt.
And they have not shown a single, actual action of independence or intelligence or integrity in the whole time that Trump's been in the White House.
No, it's what Mitch McConnell wants, Mitch McConnell gets, and what Trump wants, Mitch McConnell delivers.
Exactly. So I don't think the cowardly Republicans in the Senate will do this, but maybe the rational people around, if there are any left, will get enough momentum to find some way around this, because this is just Trump being a Nazi.
It is being, well, yeah, I guess so, without saying the N-word. Yeah, and Matt, the thing is that with the Republicans, the only reason why they're upset about this is because they know their constituents back home are going to complain. Because Trump hasn't figured out yet, but everybody else has, when he imposed tariffs, like the Chinese tariffs, who's going to pay for it?
Yeah,
we are.
It's a tax,
the consumers.
essentially.
And they're saying that prices of automobiles are going to go up because of the steel, because the parts that are made in China, they're being shipped over. Same thing with Mexico. Not just avocados and tequila, but many things that are made in Mexico are shipped.
Washing machines, refrigerators,
which you're
cars,
about to buy new ones.
Shoes, all kinds of things.
All that stuff.
Yeah, it's right. No, it's just crazy. And then, of course, you can always count on Trump for one thing, and that is just to be a vicious, mean, nasty, petty person. And he actually, his Health and Human Services Department is imposing a new denial of care rule, which basically says that in the healthcare system, they finalized this rule. It lets anyone involved in the system deny service to any patient in the name of religious freedom. So if it's like some reactionary fundamentalist Christian or Baptist doesn't like gay people, they can say, I'm not serving you because that offends my religious values. And it's like any janitor, scheduler, doctor, anybody can do this, Jim. And even in life or death situations.
No way. That's just cruel.
Isn't
that
cruel. Amazing?
Yeah, that's cool.
And Trump introduced this rule at a national prayer ceremony in May, just, for
if he's religious.
The sanctimonious SOB, This rule basically weaponizes religion to allow discrimination. It lets healthcare workers impose their religions on others. Now, what about freedom of religion. Part of freedom of religion is to be free from others' religion.
Thank you. And this is not a religious country. I mean, it's not state sanctioned.
Exactly.
We're not a Christian country. We're not any particular religion. We have the freedom, as you just said.
Nor should we be.
Nor should we be. In God we trust. That was put on the bills. In the 50s, I believe. And there's a jurisdiction in Arizona, I think, that finally are going to be putting that on their police cars.
Yeah, I saw that.
Should not be happening.
No.
Separation of church and state.
Yeah, it's like, well, if in God you trust, then are you responsible? Are you accountable for your actions?
No, because it's all God's.
Exactly, yeah. So, this rule will arbitrarily pick who gets care and who doesn't, but it threatens healthcare providers with the loss of federal funding. And it's written with intentionally vague and confusing details, basically meant to intimidate people.
There you go.
So that suddenly they'll be
bully
self-censoring and, really just puts marginalized communities at risk.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
It's, once again, bully behavior, and it's just people are getting away with it. They're good Nazis.
And it's also going to let healthcare users use one's private information against them. Healthcare workers looking at the records. Oh, this woman's married to another woman. Oh, that offends my religion. I can't serve this person.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the potential for abuse on this is just huge. And
I don't even think it's potential. I think it's going to be abuse.
Well, it is going to be. I mean, and it warps the true meaning of healthcare and religious freedom, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
that's right, Matt. That's right. And freedom for right. Freedom to be healthy. I mean, healthcare should be a right, not a privilege.
Yeah,
and this is what this is turning into be.
Exactly.
Unless you were exactly like the old guard, the patriarchy.
Yes.
In other words, white and old.
Yes.
Then basically you will be denied certain rights.
And well off. Right?
And well off.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, various groups, Americans United for Separation of Church and State.
Thank you.
A really excellent group.
Yes, like this.
And the Center for Reproductive Rights and the Lambda Legal Foundation have sued over this in coordination with Santa Clara County because they know that this is going to just mess up, healthcare everywhere. So,
Good.
Yeah.
And so isn't it unfortunate, Matt, that everything that Trump proposes, there has to be lawsuits to stop it?
Yeah,
every single
because
time.
everything he proposes is just vicious and mean.
It is. Thank
you know?
God we have the courts that'll still do this. Now Trump is trying, McConnell too, are trying to pack the courts so that when these cases come to the court, that they'll just throw them out or just basically ignore them.
They'll rule
against them.
Yeah, and it won't matter what the precedence is. It won't matter what
right.
where the justice is. It'll all matter about their prejudices.
Sure, and there goes the rule of law. And it's saying they want to try to do this all the way up to the Supreme Court, which apparently the Supreme Court is starting to lurch to the right. So,
more than apparently, yeah.
Let's think about getting our passports in order and tickets to get out of here.
Yeah.
Not yet,
kidding.
though. We're still in Petaluma.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Now, along with the same lines, Jim, the Trump administration has just recently banned fetal tissue research.
Now, this has always been a controversy. I thought it was buried, if you'll pardon the pun, under the Obama administration because they know that the medical benefits of fetal tissue are phenomenal.
Yeah, they're completely unique. And they're saying, people who are involved in this, researchers and National Institute of Health workers and, people, they're just going, this is really crazy and stupid.
Right.
This is going to impact NIH studies, UCSF studies. There are certain studies that only work with human tissue. And UCSF Chancellor Sam Hoggett said, we believe this decision to be politically motivated, short-sighted, and not based on sound science.
Thank you.
And
this is, Matt, do you remember when the first controversy of this happened? Nancy Reagan actually came out in support of it.
That's right.
Because I believe that the fetal tissue is a pure stem cell. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm not sure, but they do say it is critical to studies like cancer.
Cancer, but also Alzheimer's. And
dementia.
Thank you. Same.
HIV.
Yeah, right. And that's what she was concerned about. And if they could find a cure for her husband, Ronnie, then maybe it would be good for what's good for Ronnie is good for the nation.
She thought that would be good.
Yeah.
Well, now, of course, this is a ruling that, once again, the anti-abortionists are really thrilled about because anything, that...
Anti-choice, anti-abortion, forced pregnancy people.
Pushes back on that makes them happy. Yeah. And, the sad thing is a lot of women, it's almost invariably, I'm sure, from all accounts, no woman really wants to have an abortion.
No,
it is
I don't think so.
But it is a difficult decision.
Absolutely. Can you imagine that?
And a necessary one, depending on your circumstances.
But that's a choice that they should make with their physician.
And many people who have abortions are in favor of that fetal tissue being used for research because they feel like even though the situation did not allow them to have a pregnancy to come to term, they want to see some good come out of it.
Okay, Matt, this reminds me of the story of the child Ryan who was killed by highway robbers in Italy. Do you remember this story?
Oh, vaguely.
And he died, and his parents
donated
all of his organs, as many as possible, to other people, and the Italians don't traditionally do that. So they were astounded and loved what they did. So this is the same thing with moms who have this gut-wrenching choice to do, and they are able to do something really good with that.
Well, you just wish it could be a fly on the wall as things roll forward and see, who, because the research stopped, did not get the benefits of, say, dementia research and,
Thank you. Yes, that's right. That's
Alzheimer's.
Right.
So
right. That's right.
Yeah. So, that's...
Wow. Okay. That's a big thing to swallow. Happy Donut Day, National Donut Day, Matt. Speaking of big things to swallow, glazed or old-fashioned?
Yeah. I like the old-fashioned myself.
No comment.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll do too. They're pretty good. You had a chocolate one. That was good.
Yeah, it was good. And you had the glazed one.
I did. It was like a flashback to the past.
And your eyes got that glazed look while you were eating it.
Even more so than usual. But the thing is, when you eat donuts, there's always kind of a cloying taste on your lip. Do you notice that?
No, I don't.
These weren't so bad this time. Maybe it's because I hadn't had them in a long time. Anyway, happy Donut Day, everybody.
That's what you wash it down with coffee for.
Oh, my God. Woo! Okay.
Dietary recommendation from two Mooks and a Mike, folks.
For your benefit.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, man. Okay. What's next?
Well, let's see. CO2, carbon dioxide, is now at 415 parts per million.
Is that a lot?
That's the most ever in, recorded history.
We're number one.
And, it takes 10 years to feel the full heat effects of carbon that's in the atmosphere right now.
10 more years and we'll be boiling.
Global emissions hit an all-time high last year.
And where did most of the global emissions come from? Cars?
Cars, transportation, fuel, coal plants.
That's right.
But, talking about coal plants, here's
let's do it.
A little bit of good news. Global investment in coal drops 75% in the last 3 years.
Yes, that's great.
How about that?
That's fantastic.
So, and investors are not always the most enlightened. In fact, often are the least enlightened.
No, they just won't give me the money.
Yeah, exactly. Just, in search of that profit. But it's, that's moving in the right direction. Now, Jim, coal still powers 38% of the global electricity production.
That's too much, Matt. Too much.
But more coal power plants went offline last year than were approved for building. So that's another
really
good
nice.
step.
Now, but of course, it begs the question: what are they being replaced with? Let's hope it's renewables.
Yes, it is renewables,
All right, not nuclear.
Well, in Asia, there is still coal expansion going on. They're up like 63%.
Whoa!
But the European Union is down 25%, and the U.S. is down 40% in the last year.
Wait a minute, this down 40%, despite the fact that Trump is saying with his cronies we have, and who isn't part of the EPA? The guy is Mr. Coal Baron himself.
Yeah, exactly. Despite all those efforts to resurrect coal.
Yeah, it is
the
troll.
Trolls in coal.
Yeah,
it is not working, and that is actually really good news.
That is good news. Good to hear it.
Yeah, how about that? Let's see.
Wow. Okay, so I have something for you.
Okay.
This is a customer at Britain's upscale Hawksmoor Manchester restaurant ordered a bottle of fine French wine. It was worth $333. I'd never pay that much for a bottle of wine. But instead was served a $5,760 bottle of Chateau Le Pin Pomerol by a rushed employee. There was no extra charge. That's good news, right?
I'd go back to that restaurant.
And rush the employee.
Yeah.
Hey, give me that. Pick that up.
Hurry,
give me one of those.
Another water.
More butter, please.
And bring that wrong bottle.
Right. There we go. That's
good. Talking about immigration and thing, Honduras has been seeing nationwide protest by teachers and doctors. I know this is close and near and dear to your heart as a retired teacher.
That's right. We protested, actually, as a teacher.
Yeah. These guys are protesting against President Juan Orlando Hernandez.
Why? What did he do?
They want his resignation for a variety of things, including crumbling infrastructure and the erosion of public services and revelations that in his first term, he's in his second term, he was a subject of a DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, drug trafficking investigation.
What?
Now, this guy is supported by the Trump administration. They think he's our best ally in Central America.
Of course. That's where Trump can get his drugs. Oh, wait, he doesn't do drugs.
Too bad. He needs them.
Yeah, he does.
This guy tried a privatization scheme that would basically kill off public education and health services.
What?
So that's why teachers and doctors are protesting.
Okay,
and
sure.
there's rampant corruption. There was like $350 million disappeared from the healthcare system. And, some of that money was traced to his campaign coffers.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow,
Matt, it's ongoing.
But what's going on down there, Jim, is that, of course, Honduras is one of the most dangerous countries in the world today outside of a war zone. And when these protests have been occurring, the government has been responding with tear gas and live bullets.
Wow. So they're shooting their own.
Yeah, they're trying to. His Orlando Hernandez's National Party has ruled since the 2009 military coup.
Okay, so that's 10 years.
Yeah, so that was a really ugly coup that, again, America basically supported the kicking a popularly elected president out and installing
their puppet.
Yeah, their puppet. And the party's totally corrupt, and they're power grabbers. Spending on education and healthcare is down by a third.
It boggles the mind.
And it's there's murders, there's paramilitaries, there's gangs, etc. And under this guy's watch, this is when there's been this huge increase in refugees fleeing his country.
Well, do you
what
wonder
a surprise!
Why? Right?
Yeah. Even if you're a teacher, or a doctor, a professional, maybe you had a decent quality of life, but now they're just trying to privatize everything, which is a power grab.
Yeah,
you protest, and they shoot at your ass. Yeah. So no wonder people are leaving, right?
Okay.
So
he's
while that's going on, Trump, in the meantime, his administration is now canceling education, recreational, and legal programs for immigration minors.
Okay, let's not educate them, so they will have no skills at all. They will not be able to speak English well at all.
Lock them up in these facilities. They're talking about building these massive camps with like 1,200, 1,400, 1,600 beds.
Ooh, good Lord, is this permanent?
Well, the thing is that in 1997, Jim, there was a court settlement that set the standards of care for minor immigrants. Now, what we've seen and we know is that the Trump administration is locking everybody up, and they're locking them up long beyond they're legally allowed to do that. There's lawsuits challenging that. But in the meantime, so they're filling up these beds, and then Health and Human Services and ICE and Border Patrol are all saying, "Give us more billions." We need more beds for these. Oh, it's a crisis. And yes, granted, last month 144,000 immigrants came into the country, and about 40% of those were minors.
Wow.
With and without parents, but minors.
Wow.
So that's a huge number.
So it sounds
shows the desperation in Central America.
Yeah.
But then what's going on then is that what they're doing is holding on to them when they could be releasing them.
Thank you. And this is a program that they did before, Matt, where they would process them, give them a court date to show up for their hearing, and let them go.
Exactly.
And we were talking before the show, like over 94%, around 94% of the people who had this process done to them, they would show up for their hearing.
That's right.
And this is one of the things that would be maybe alleviate this problem. So
exactly.
Along the same lines, this is from June the 4th, a few days ago. 37 migrant children waited in vans overnight during mishandled family reunifications. They said that bungled family reunifications left 37 of these kids waiting in vans for up to 39 hours last July in Texas. The children's facility was only a 30-minute ride from the adults-only detention center where their parents were being held. Children and parents had been separated when the Trump administration began methodically separating migrant families who legally crossed into the U.S.
So that's just cruel.
It is cruel. But when the children, who were all between the ages of 5 and 12 years old, Matt, arrived at the adults-only facility, they were made to wait in vans so they could be processed and reunified with their parents. When the children arrived, the parking lot was full of other vans like theirs, too. Most spent 23 hours in the vehicles. The last child left to be reunited spent 39 hours in a van.
Wow, that's just hideous. I mean, nobody wants, you and I would be going, crazy
in bonkers.
Few hours.
It's just, I want these people to be prosecuted.
I do too.
I want them to see justice.
Well, so the Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement has basically sent out word to the nonprofit providers of services to the kids, the education providers, the recreation providers, the legal aid providers, and said, we're not paying for these programs anymore. And in fact, it's retroactive back to May 22nd. So they're just really shafting, they're just sticking the knife in these people's backs, and say, not only are we discontinuing the program, but what you've already performed, you're not going to get paid for,
Unbelievable.
right?
And this is a policy by Stephen Miller.
Yes.
All indications said that he's the architect of this.
Yes.
And it was to deter migrants coming. But, Matt, it seems like what you just read, the statistics of people coming in, it's not doing anything to slow them down.
No, it's not.
Especially what's happening in the southern countries like Honduras.
Yes. Well, as we were
to leave.
Before the show, we were talking about how Trump eliminated the financial aid to programs to help alleviate poverty, crime, and corruption in those Central American countries.
That's right, which Obama started by sending people down there, investigating what was needed, giving them money to help them, giving them incentives to stay.
Yes.
And when you cut off that fund, it's gone, or the government takes the money, and these people are left with nothing.
Well, this attorney, Carlos Holguin, he is the one that got that court settlement in 1997, and he says, we'll see them in court if they go through with it. He goes, what's next? Drinking water, food, where are they going to stop?
Unbelievable.
So, basically any intelligent person knows that schooling and exercise are critical to a kid's health. And to be locked up with other kids and no parents and no social structure.
No exercise.
It's just, it's emotionally damaging. It's traumatic, right?
It is traumatic.
And then the executive director of the National Immigration Justice Center says, this is just another ploy to secure tax money to lock people up.
Wow.
Even Amnesty International is calling this unconscionable. So, I mean, it's really gotten the attention of the international, civilized world. And, and of course, if they discontinue the legal programs, which they are, kids are not able to defend themselves in court.
No.
Many of them don't speak English, so they're just going to get deported,
Or held indefinitely.
And held indefinitely.
Yeah, I want retribution, Matt.
So this is just
resolved.
Vicious, I know.
All right, let's hear about something a little bit nicer, slightly nicer.
Now, before we do,
you
had mentioned Nancy Pelosi's quote last week.
Oh, okay. Well, let me do this first because it's still related. This is from Ukraine, Kiev. And you know that they have a new president voted in. His name is Volodymyr Zelensky. He was sworn in as Ukraine's president this week. He's the former comic actor. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, he dissolved the parliament, part of an all-out effort to purge the government of those loyal to the former president, Poroshenko.
Yes.
Zelensky won 73% of the vote last month. He hopes new elections will bring his supporters into the legislature so he can deliver on his pledge to end corruption and secure a ceasefire in the war against Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. Zelensky also called for the dismissal of Prosecutor General Lutsenko, who has ties with President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and who was allegedly involved in a plot to accuse Ukrainian officials of meddling in the 2016 U.S. elections in favor of the Clinton campaign. Nice. That's good, right?
Yeah.
Finally, we have a clown comic as a good president instead of a clown comic as a bad president.
Really? A true clown, not a fake clown.
There we go.
Well, and
that's right.
So Pelosi's quote that I mentioned was that she said that she told her Democratic fellows in the Congress that she would rather see Trump in jail than impeached.
The quote is she wants to see him in prison instead of impeached and would prefer to see him defeated in an election than prosecuted for his alleged crimes. Although Pelosi has held this line after the Mueller report was released, House Judiciary Committee Jerry Nadler reportedly pressed her to allow his committee to open an impeachment inquiry into Trump, which is a big development since he has publicly stuck with her position against impeachment so far. Right now, Matt, 60 House members support an impeachment inquiry, including a number of members on Nadler's Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, that's good. That is steadily growing because a few weeks ago we mentioned it was 22, then it was like 30 or 36, growing. And now it's 60.
So, listeners, if you're feeling strongly about this, you can call your House rep to see where they stand. Here's the number. Got a pencil? Got paper? Here you go. 202-224-3121. Okay?
But I will tell you, our House rep, Jared Huffman, supports impeachment.
I know. I call up and I talk to the representative for Jared Huffman, and I said, "This is what I want done," and they let me speak. And at the end, they said, "Representative Huffman already supports this." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, what's the weather like where you are?"
And along those lines, Jerry Nadler, who's head of the House Judiciary Committee,
love that guy.
He is still in negotiation with the Department of Justice over the release of the unredacted Mueller report and the underlying information. And the Department of Justice is, of course, now, Congress has cited Attorney General Barr with contempt for not providing that information.
Yay.
And so they're in discussions about will they, when will they, what will it be, and how much. And so the Department of Justice is saying, well, no, we're willing, okay, we'll go along with it, but you got to drop that contempt against Barr. And Nadler's going, I don't think so.
Good.
It's like, if you're going to negotiate, we're going to negotiate without conditions.
Good.
And, the Department of Justice is going, well, it's so hasty. And he goes, no, we started this in February.
Like that.
We've been very patient. And now it's, if you don't, start coming along here, we're going to have a second vote of contempt against Barr.
Wow.
And that may be this coming week.
Excellent. So, Matt, the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they turn very, very finely.
Yes, they grind.
They do grind, and it's grinding on. I wish that I did. Frankly, I was one of the ones to say, come on, Jerry, let's get going.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see.
They have been.
They have been, and it's just behind the scenes. We don't always hear about it because it may not be newsworthy, right?
Exactly. Well, the White House is still resisting all the way. I mean, there's, like 16 investigations.
Hope Hicks.
And, that's right. And so, like, he just told his former employee, Hope Hicks, assistant communications director, not to honor the subpoena that she got from Congress.
Yep.
And also Ann Donaldson, who is in the White House law department. And, that's unfortunate. I'd like to see those people
put in the pokey.
Put them in the pokey. Make an example out of them.
Well, she has turned over some documents, right?
But it's not the ones that they're really looking for.
So she's just thinking they're just going to appease them and leave her alone, or maybe
throw crumbs and see if that'll
look the other way.
Yeah, but and Barr, along with Wilbur Ross, the economic advisor,
hate that guy.
Just a couple of 1% of the 1% elite, radical right wingers. They are both subject to contempt on the issue of adding a citizenship question to the census.
Yes.
They've been required to provide documents regarding that process, which we know there's been all kinds of public information about how they've colluded and made things up. And, the Department of Justice asked us to do it. And it's like, no, you lie. And here's the proof. And, they're stonewalling on that. So, it is... Although things are nice and sunny outside today and we live in a very good part of the world, there is a constitutional crisis that is going on in the country right now.
Very slowly. And on many different fronts, it seems like.
On many different fronts.
Not just one.
It has yet to be determined how this is going to come out. But I agree with Pelosi. I'd rather see, if you had to pick, I'd rather see Trump in prison than impeached. But let's go for both.
Well, right, and we talked about this already. If the House files articles of impeachment, remember, impeachment is just bringing him to trial. It's not throwing him out. So this starts a movement going, and it allows them to subpoena even more documents, apparently, than they would be able to otherwise.
With more clear authority.
Thank you. With more clear authority. So we know that the Senate is controlled by the Republicans, and they're in the cult, and they're going to say no, or they're going to have the quickest hearing ever. They've already said that's what happened.
That's right.
But at least the House could get things going, and it would appease a lot of people with that.
Yeah.
I don't think they have to get down in the bogged down in the nitty-gritty of it, because they said, it's going to be boring to people, they'll turn off, and then they'll hate us.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think they have to do
yeah,
something.
I mean, it's like if you have such egregious violations of the emoluments clause,
yes,
of racism and bigotry and cheating and corruption, what's it going to take? I mean,
what is it going to take? I mean,
there's a time and a place for it, and if it's not here now, it's just a hair's width away.
What'd you say? Hair's width away?
Hair's width.
Oh, a hair's width away.
Yeah.
I thought you were speaking another language. You're speaking in tongues. I'm thinking, okay, well, Matt,
Time for that. Yeah.
Speaking of that, speaking in tongues, did you know that former Saturday Night Live star Dan Aykroyd said he's seen UFOs and is sure that aliens are visiting the planet? The proof is going to start dribbling out, said Aykroyd. I thought you were dribbling right there, Matt. So maybe you are an alien.
Maybe Dan's dribbling.
Whoa, now,
I don't
just
know.
because he's getting older.
Yeah. Well, so what else, Jim? Let's see. Well, the disaster aid bill finally passed.
Yay!
About
9
time.
point something billion.
Yeah. Okay. And Puerto Rico's finally going to get some help.
I'll believe it
a couple
when I
years
see
later.
it. I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I mean, it's like Trump and his minions are so good at choking off the flow of funds to things that are already entitled to it. And then of course, Jim, here comes the 4th of July.
You mean the Trump Day?
Yeah.
Honor Trump in America?
Yeah, exactly. The guy is still trying to hijack the Washington, D.C. national celebration of the 4th
Make
of
it all about
July.
him.
And
Yes.
he's saying he's going to have it, speak to America on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah.
And it's still just asinine in the extreme. And people are going, expect protest.
Expect protest. I was watching Rachel Maddow. I was telling you this, that Richard Nixon tried to do the exact same thing back in 1968, I believe, in the height of the Vietnam War. And he wanted to change the name from the 4th of July celebration to something like Unify America or America's Wonderful. Well, there are riots. There are people in the reflecting pool swimming. They took a truck with a spotlight on it and overturned it in the reflecting pool. So it was canceled. So let's hope that the same type of thing will happen if Trump tries to get his way. And he's enabled to do it, Matt. He's enabled to do it. That's the worst part.
Yeah, exactly. Who is going to hold him to account?
I don't know. But listen, here's another thing about good old Trump. Some military members deployed near the border, our southern border, will spend about a month painting a mile of the border wall to improve its aesthetic appearance. Apparently, this is because Trump said they were ugly. So they're going to paint him brown.
Going to put lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Make it squeal like a pig.
Yeah, they should paint his face on there. That would be just, wouldn't it?
Horrible. Yeah.
Hey, so the unending election cycle
that started already.
Last weekend, the Democratic Party had a convention in San Francisco. And a lot of people came. Joe Biden wouldn't show his face.
Why?
Well, because I think he knew he was just going to get a lot of crap for his various flip-floppy positions, one of which was his support for the Hyde Amendment, which prevents any federal funds from being spent on abortion. And now he's finally come around and said, oh, well, I think he did the political calculus first, but then he says, well, the extreme anti-abortion laws being passed in a lot of the states are taking women's rights away from them. So, we can't do that. So he's flipping on the Hyde Amendment.
He also was being criticized for the way he handled the Anita Hill hearings. And
yes.
He spoke about it several times, and he never apologized.
He never did. He called her up, but he did not apologize.
He didn't apologize
and
for it.
Shame on him forever for that.
Yeah. But would you vote for him, Matt, if he's the only person standing?
If he's the only one running against Trump, I would be forced to, hold my nose and vote for him once again.
There's an interesting article by David Brooks in today's paper, and he was talking about how the young millennials and Generation Y or Z, they're basically having a break from the Republican Party. They will have nothing to do with it because they're saying, no, we do not want, we don't like the direction the country's going in. We want to have it be more equitable, more multicultural, and bully for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, David Brooks is no soothsayer. It's been obvious for a long time that the GOP has a generation gap problem because they're a bunch of elitist, dying, wealthy old white guys.
And it's the death throes of the patriarchy.
And there's they have no natural constituency.
No, they don't. And the DNC.
I did see another article,
I'll talk about that in a minute.
Column that was talking about back to impeachment for a second. second. It said that 53% of the American public oppose impeachment. That's not a huge majority, so it just makes you wonder that if you did start the process and did start to publicize the vast number and variety of Trump's crimes, how much that would change. I personally think it would.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier, starting the impeachment process.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be in the forefront of the news all the time because people will get bored with all the minutiae of it or the complicatedness of it. But if they're smart, they would start it and they would bring up the hot button topics of how Trump is a corrupt person, how Trump is basically a loser when it comes to business deals.
Yeah.
He's not, and he's a con man.
During the Clinton impeachment, there was 24/7 TV coverage and such.
That was salacious, thanks to Ken Starr.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But going back to Biden and the other candidates for the Democratic, the future Democratic president, I wanted to point out that
one can hope.
So Biden is feeling the pressure. He wouldn't come here. People like Elizabeth Warren were talking about abortion. They're going, hey, look, women with means are always going to be able to have an abortion. That's going to be available. Right. All these laws are going to impact women of color and poor people.
The disenfranchised.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that and if you were a decent person, then Biden would have recognized that years ago and acted accordingly.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders, a man I highly respect, who's been consistent in his positions all along.
Yeah.
He last week crashed the annual Walmart shareholders meeting in Arkansas. He was actually the guest of a group called United for Respect as their proxy, and he went and he told the CEO and the board that basically that they're paying their workers starvation wages.
$11 an hour.
$11 an hour. And what's funny about this, Jim, is that he says that, well, frankly, the American people are sick and tired of subsidizing the greed of some of the largest and most profitable corporations in this country. He called on them to raise their minimum wage from $11 to $15 an hour, right?
Good. Yeah.
And then he said that you can do that because your CEO got $20 million last year, and Walmart is in the process of buying back $20 billion in their own stock.
Which are what a lot of corporations are doing.
Yeah, which benefits the stockholders and the officers, right?
Yeah.
So the CEO, I find this is the funny part, CEO Doug McMillon then, somehow unrelated, calls on Congress to raise the federal minimum wage, which is a measly $7.25 an hour, which is like, well, you're the largest single private employer in the world, and you're calling on Congress. Why don't you lead by example?
Thank you. Why don't you lead by example?
How about that? Wouldn't that be a good
idea? Instead of passing the buck.
Yeah, exactly.
On the flip side, earlier this week, Walmart, the same company, announced that it will offer free SAT, ACT prep for kids who are there because they're looking to employ young people because there's a worker shortage.
Right.
So if they work for 90 days, they get free SAT, ACT test preps. They will also expand it's $1 a day college tuition benefit, which means that if these kids work for them for 90 days, they can apply to certain colleges, and the colleges, they don't have to physically be there. You can do it online. And Walmart will charge them $1 a day for tuition and books, which is pretty good, which means no student debt for these kids. They have a limited number of courses they can take, but supposedly it's going to expand. But listen to this. They're not the only ones doing it. No. But like some business things.
Aisle sweeping.
McDonald's, Kroger, Starbucks, and Chick-fil-A, of all that company, that right-wing company, they're also offering similar benefits. So that's really good news.
Well, this is where public pressure on corporations bears results because, those corporations all are doing that because they have had people pressuring them with demonstrations, protests at shareholder meetings, et cetera, bad publicity.
And also, Matt, it's their bottom line. They can't get enough workers. So they're sweetening the pot for them to work. And obviously they're going to make more money than it's going to cost them to pay all these, right?
Yes. And of course, Walmart is the single largest private employer in the world. But Costco and Target pay more per hour.
Yes.
If they're not as big, I mean, they're gigantic.
Costco also is a worker-owned and run company, so it's not just top-down, which is good. It's a little, maybe makes a difference.
Yeah, which is important because really, every board, every corporate board should actually have members of their workforce have seats on the board.
Thank you. I think so too. Yeah. So back to the DNC, where you're talking about Bernie Sanders going in. DNC, the Democratic National Committee, rejected Jay Inslee, who's running for
he's the mayor of Washington.
Right.
Not the mayor, I'm sorry, the governor of Washington.
Right, of the state. And he was the one who's working on, his main his big idea is climate change.
Yeah, he's really a single issue candidate, but it's climate change.
Which is kind of nice and kind of important.
Kind of critical.
They rejected his request, Jay Inslee's request for a primary debate focused solely on climate, and said he wouldn't be invited to future debates if he participated in anyone else's climate debate. Do you believe that?
Jesus.
Beto O'Rourke, who was also interested in a climate-centered Democratic debate, told CBS afterwards that it's something Democrats deserve.
Yeah, the DNC, this is where they have their heads up their rectal sphincters.
Whoa! A little tight fit.
This is how Hillary Clinton lost. I mean, they're just blind.
They are.
I mean, it's like the single most pressing issue, and they won't have a debate on it, and they will not just not debate it, but they threaten to punish the candidate.
You will not show up to any of these.
Yeah,
who are they listening to?
Yeah, and who are they to say that to? I mean, we're hoping that some of the changes in the internal rules, like eliminating most of the super delegates and stuff, you would think could help change and make the leadership more equitable. But this is just not a good sign to see that.
It's
Jim.
not a good sign, and when people, I get emails from them saying support us, and I'm like, no, I don't think so.
Exactly. It's like I send back their postpaid envelope and say, yeah, I'll support you when you do this and this and this. Right?
Glue it to a brick. Man.
It's been done before. Hey, a couple of positive steps. So,
let's hear a positive.
Well, this one is kind of hopefully this will work out well. YouTube is pulling neo-Nazi, bigoted, and extremist videos to help stem the tide of hate speech online. But, of course, typically, we've seen the big corporations apply their algorithms, which is what they use to find them, in a very haphazard manner. Mm-hmm. And so, the good government groups and people are saying, that sounds good, but we'll see how that goes. You need to make sure you're doing it right and you're not just ham-handed about it. In the meantime, Trump and all the right-wingers are claiming, they're picking on us again.
Yeah, it's
our
censorship.
Rights. Yeah, exactly. Our rights are being taken away from us and blah, blah, blah.
Wow, okay.
And then another bit of good news is that British Columbia, our neighbor to the north, has passed a law that says that by 2040, no more gasoline-powered cars will be sold or manufactured in British Columbia.
That's so fantastic. Unfortunately, Matt, you and I are going to be so old we won't be able to drive back then. Here's something good, too. There are now 56 parrot species from tropical climates living in the wild in the U.S., including in New York City and Chicago, with escaped pet parrots forming breeding colonies. How about that, Matt? Yeah. There are currently no native parrot species in this country.
Oh,
not native. Yeah, 56.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, there's some in what is it? Telegraph Hill.
That's
the Parrots of Telegraph Hill.
That's right. Great movie.
Yeah, that's a great
movie. New York State prosecutors are asking the federal law enforcement issues to transfer Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign manager, to New York City for arraignment on state fraud charges.
Rikers.
Hold him in Rikers Island.
And possibly in solitary confinement.
Yeah, something he deserves.
And a lot of the charges against him are going to be untouchable by Trump's pardons because they are state.
That's right.
And not fed.
That's
which is great.
Right. And then, the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission say they're going to be looking into Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple for antitrust activities. Now, this is not, formal investigations of wrongdoing. They're just going to look and see what's there. Again, consumer groups are saying, wait and see, because the FTC in particular has been toothless. The last time Google, I think it was about early like 2010, I think, was investigated for antitrust, and nothing happened. But in the European Union, they were,
fining them.
Yeah, $25
time.
million bucks or something. That
Well, more than that. It wasn't in the billions.
well, it could have been 25 billion.
That's
Yeah,
a lot.
I don't have the number in front of me, but they were
Let's make
serious
it up.
about it. But in the meantime, you wonder, I know there are still good people working in the Department of Justice,
Yeah.
but when you see Attorney General, William Barr playing toady to the president, you wonder
puppet.
about the leadership there. So,
Yeah,
but that's good, because it's time for these things to be addressed.
It is.
The data that they have on everybody, that they profit off of, and that they collect, in vast, volumes, is really.
What do they do with it?
Well, I mean,
What do they do with it? They sell it.
and eventually, that's going to be abused.
Yes.
Human nature being what it is.
One more data breach. But how about this? Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google have rapidly increased spending on lobbying over the past 3 years and are hiring up lobbyists with ties to the White House, DOJ, and Congress. They're expected to exceed the $55 million they spent last year as they face an oversight investigation from the House Judiciary Committee. And this is one of the things that Elizabeth Warren is talking about, breaking up big tech.
That's right.
Basically, she's saying they're like monoliths that need to be broken up.
They're bigger than many countries.
Yeah.
And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez
Love
has been
that woman.
talking about banning lobbying from former Congress people. Period.
And you know what? As I recall, Matt, that's not just her. I mean, she.
There are others too.
No, but she's signing on with a Republican to do that. So, yes. Was it Ted Cruz that she's doing?
Yeah,
something really strange.
I don't think they produced a proposed bill yet, but they were
agreeing.
Yeah, they were twittering together.
Which my head
together.
kind of exploded there. I mean, it's like, what am I reading? Is
Really?
this like a new age?
Ted Cruz, can't trust that guy.
No, can't trust him at all. Right.
But it's a good thing. I mean, if Teddy wants to support that, go for it, Ted. That is crucially important. Right now, you have a 1-year embargo after you've been out of office before you can go work for the.
Oh, you just take a vacation for a year.
Yeah, exactly. Go to work for the corporation that you are legislating for or against.
The revolving door.
Exactly. I mean,
there was
that's corruption.
A nice little video I saw on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Matt, and she was grilling a defense contractor for a little washer that costs like $33 to make.
You mean like a washer that goes over a screw or something?
It was actually for something in an engine. It was bigger than that.
All right.
$33 to make, and they were charging the government over $2,000 for it. And so she points out how many doses of insulin that could save, how many meals it could give to children in preschool. And she embarrassed them so much that they actually refunded some of that money.
Oh, good.
Pretty good.
So that now it only costs $1,000.
That's right. Do you remember William Proxmire and his Proxmire and his what was it? The Fickle Finger of Fate.
Yes,
the gold. No, it was the Golden Toilet Award or something.
Yeah.
The Golden Finger. And he this is what he was known as, is the $50,000 hammer and the gold toilet seats and all this crazy stuff. Yeah, so that's good. She's doing that too.
Yes. Well, and Trump is not the only one that is out there, wreaking havoc on people. Our friends ALEC, the American Legislative Executive Council, who proposes cut and paste legislation for state houses to adopt. These guys are just nasty. They have now submitted over 10,000 fill-in-the-blanks bills to legislatures all over the country. Yeah, it's like all you got to do is add, your state's name.
Wow.
And one of the things they're proposing now is legislation to make protesting against fossil fuel pipelines, like the Keystone XL, felony with 3-year prison term and massive fines.
That's
apparently the state of Illinois was considering it, but Common Cause, another good government group, promoted, got people to protest, and the legislature had to back off on that.
Good.
But, there's like over 100 right-wing state legislators who have submitted similar bills across the country.
The cut and paste.
Yeah. And, listeners, if you're not familiar with ALEC, these guys are funded by the Koch brothers, the oil companies, tobacco.
So in other words, pure evil.
Yeah. Although, let's see, one of the corporations that supported them, Comcast, who was, been has been fighting net neutrality. Comcast has been a member of ALEC, and ALEC has proposed anti-net neutrality legislation. But again, Common Cause got the heat put on him, and so Comcast has quit ALEC. And there have been a number of other corporations in the last couple of years that have had to bail on that because when the spotlight of public awareness turns on them, it's very embarrassing.
You know, thank God, Matt, we live in a society where we can have groups like Common Cause to keep shining the light on these evildoers.
That's right. Still doing
it's constant.
Fighting the good fight.
Like being a parent, you always have to watch your child. I guess I don't have a kid.
Yeah, I would know.
You have your cat.
And you have your dogs.
We have dogs. You always have to watch them because they're going to eat, whatever crap they find on the ground. To your detriment. You have to pick up after them, just like Comcast.
Larry was telling me a T-shirt that's like, she was a bad kitty and didn't care. Yeah.
That's about right.
I know, that's right. And here's some good news, though.
Oh, please give me some good news. Let's end on a good note.
Relief for the masses.
All right, let's
Oakland decriminalized psilocybin mushrooms.
Woohoo! Yeah. Matt, what are you doing right after the show? Let's go over to Oakland.
Yeah.
Party, baby.
I don't think it's like you can buy it on the street corner.
Why
not? But it's basically to say, it's the lowest criminal prosecution
so they're
priority.
Not gonna set up mushroom shacks?
No, I don't think so.
Mushrooms with your omelets, sir?
Yeah, omelets like in Thailand on the beach.
In Bali, yeah. In Bali, people go out and pull the sunset afterwards. Good show.
Yeah.
Good show.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
What else you got there? Any more tidbits there, Jim?
Yeah, I do. I have a tidbit. Here we go. The Internal Revenue Service audited just 0.59% of individual tax returns last year. The seventh consecutive year audits have declined amid budget and staffing cuts at the agency. So, Don, if you're listening, now's the time for you not to have to pay your taxes. Chances of you being audited are very slim.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing you weren't on a boat to Cuba, though, because
Matt,
the Trump administration has banned pretty much all travel to Cuba. And there are, ridiculous. Check this out, that upset over 800,000 people who have already en route or booked passage to Cuba, like on cruise lines.
What happens? Do they get their money back? What happens?
I don't know, probably. But
and I was listening to a podcast about that, and who's it going to hurt are the people the small mom and pop businesses who could cater to tourists. It's not going to hurt the government.
No. That's just crazy.
Is that typical or what?
Yeah, well, Mexican tariffs, right? Who's that going to hurt? It's going to hurt everybody that lives in America.
Yeah, well, Matt, the playoffs are happening tonight. Another game, and a Florida man was arrested for playing basketball in the buff. He told cops playing naked enhances his skill level. Police in the Orlando suburb of Longwood were summoned to a park on reports of a man practicing his jump shot in the nude. Okay, don't even think about what that looks like. The guy was 29. He calmly explained to officers that he was working on his basketball skills. Okay, he said he obligingly got dressed and then was promptly booked for indecent exposure. They didn't run him in naked.
God, really? It's like, seriously, in public?
A lot of things bouncing around, a lot of things dribbling, I bet, after that pickup game.
There's a picture. That's what backyards are for, I think, right?
Yeah, not in public, and definitely not the basketball hoops in the schoolyard.
Well, folks, you're listening to, if you're still with us, you're listening to Two Mooks and a Mic. That's Jim Thomas over there.
And that's Matt McGuire, so thanks again for tuning in.
Giving you the regurgitation of the week.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not too bad to swallow this one.
Yeah, hopefully.
We left on a good note, Matt, I think.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. This is KPCA-LP, Petaluma, California, your low-power FM community radio station. And we'll be back next week to ruin your lunch hour.
We hope so.
Thanks for listening,
folks.
folks.
All right, you guys. Bye.
Take care.